Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wake Up Missoula. I am your host, Scott Ramf, here to usher you into the weekend. I'm having some major technical difficulties this morning, so you're going to have to bear with me as I jump right into some news items and some other items I'm going to talk about today. Mayoral candidate Mike Nugent here in Missoula, Montana, came under scrutiny for a $125,000 campaign contribution by the National Organization of Realtors. City Council saw many concerned citizens gave comment stating that the organization has ties to dark money, and in a time of housing insecurity, having money thrown at a realtor by trade has raised some eyebrows. The Missoulian had the scoop, and this money is roughly larger than any other campaign in local Missoula history. Missoula politics aren't really at the forefront of the issue in Missoula, with rising costs of living and property taxes going up for services in Missoula. It did not look for a candidate to accept this money from an outside interest. During the council meeting, House District 94 Representative Tom France spoke about this outside influence over the legislature and how it is not something transparent for most Montanans. Overall, this is an ongoing story, and I'll have more on this during my city council report when we have some live, public comment reaction to this as well. So more light news happening this week, as well as the International Choir Festival is happening this week with an opening at Karis Park that happened this last Wednesday, with giving a little taste with 2-3 songs that each choir is performing. If you missed any performance, note that this will be ongoing today and Saturday for your international enjoyment. For more information, go to choralfestival.org. Visiting choirs not including the University Choir Missoula Chamber Choir include Costa Rica, Estonia, Georgia, Germany, Lithuania, Poland, Catalonia, Taiwan, Uganda, and the states of California and Utah. Friday events take place at the Denson Theater and Music Recital Hall starting at 3 p.m. today. You can travel back and forth, see a lot of different singers and choirs and stuff like that. And then at 7 p.m. they're going to add St. Anthony Parish, doing some of the extra spillover with a lot of the choirs that are going to be singing. So it's a good chance to see a whole bunch of them today and tonight, along with tomorrow as well. There are St. Anthony Parish is located at 217 Tremont Street. Famed singer Tony Bennett died today, just short of his 97th birthday. I Left My Heart in San Francisco and sung more recently with Lady Gaga and Christina Aguilera when they updated their image with the help of this swinging old man. Frank Sinatra was once quoted saying, "For my money, Tony Bennett is the best singer in the business. He excites me when I watch him. He moves me. He's the singer who gets across what the composer has in mind and probably a little bit more." End quote from Frank Sinatra. And one of the big things that also happened just last Friday, I didn't really harp too much on, is like the writers and actors strike has gone on for about a week now, and the actors joined the month-long writer strike. And outrage kind of came soon after they heard one of the unnamed CEOs for one of the big companies. There's speculation it's a certain House of Mouse CEO, but that's just speculation at this point. But one of the quotes were saying that they would wait out the writer's strike. As soon as they started losing their homes, that's when they would bring the writers to the negotiation table. But with the actors in tow with the writer's strike, it looks like they're going to have a lot more stock when it comes to dealing with this major protest and major strike that's happening for a lot of executives who have been making 300 times more than the lowest earner on a lot of these productions. So think about it like this. I've worked on probably the lowest in production, and I just got like $1,000 to do like a couple days. So if you maximize that by like 300 times, you're looking at like quite a hefty sum of money for that as well. So that's kind of what's happening there. I didn't get too much done. We do have our summer camps this week here at MCAT, and we're going to be, this is our second week, and next week we're doing another stop animation camp, which, so we have basically 3 weeks of stop animation. Next week is our last week for stop animation. I don't have any things to tease you, but I do have an update to tell you that we'll probably be posting all these kids videos in a compilation tonight starting at 4 p.m. It's going to be live streamed, posted starting around 4 o'clock today on both our Facebook and YouTube channel. You can look us up, Missoula Community Media Resource. So that's kind of what's happening here in and around. What else do I have to kind of mention as well? Former Wake Up Missoula host Josh Minnie basically said that one big thing is happening with the Powerball. That seems to be a big move in the California State Powerball, where he did a report down in Nevada saying that a lot of people are border jumping into California to try to win that sweet California Powerball money as well, which is worth more than $1 billion. So So that's kind of what's happening there. Yeah, I don't know if I have too much I want to report on just in terms of just like things that I'm going to be reported on during my city council, because one of the big things is that they had the executive budget meeting for the city of Missoula, and a lot of that moved towards the idea that they want to improve infrastructure, affordable housing, and Missoula Redevelopment Agency is leaning more towards built equity and trying to up the housing stock in the city of Missoula. There's been a big boom of people wanting to move to Missoula, and a lot of people who have been here longer seem to be kind of being shoved down a little bit further, just because the ability to get some decent pay, not to mention being able to just have decent rent in general in the city of Missoula is very scarce, and it's become a landlord market kind of here in Missoula. So those are kind of the things that are kind of what the city of Missoula is kind of trying to look towards curbing some of those issues here in the city moving forward. So I don't have much more to say about that. I have another short series of videos for you guys. This is our little break, and then when I come back, we're going to talk about some movies that are coming out this weekend. So here's a little taste of our Saturday drop-ins from just this last year.
Blueberry pancakes acquired.
Die, scum!
Oh, crap!
Bye-bye!
Hey Missoula, Mark Moss from Tell Us Something here. Wanting to let you know that we are looking for storytellers for our next live storytelling event. The event takes place on September 28th. The theme is Lost in Translation. If you would like to pitch your story for Lost in Translation, call 406-203-4683. The pitch deadline is August 20th. As soon as I hear your pitch, I will call you and let you know that I got it. And from there, if you're selected, we'll workshop our stories together, and there is a group workshop. Please pitch your story for Lost in Translation by calling 406-203-4683. Thanks.
Hey guys, welcome back. Let's talk about some movies that are coming out this weekend. Kicking things off is the new Barbie movie. From the famous toy for girls and some collectors of gender fluidity comes a movie that Tyra Banks kind of stole away and Aqua sang about it. Simply put, Barbie has their movie, and Blonde Taste of the Month, Margot Robbie, will take on the role that requires blonde, check, beautiful, check, dumb, sure. Follow a series of elf-inspired tropes from this John Cena merman out of water in this elf-like movie that even Will Ferrell plays a part in the Mattel goon trying to get Barbie back to the thing before it's too late while learning the importance of being a Barbie girl in today's day and age. Then we got the counterpart, which is Oppenheimer, which is pretty much kind of like the opposite of Barbie, where it's like capitalism, and then Oppenheimer's just like we're gonna have to create this bomb to defeat the things, whatever. But like history come alive, in these times of nuclear uncertainty comes the bringing of death, destroyer of worlds. Oppenheimer is an artsy piece by Christopher Nolan, who at this time kind of makes high concept art for filmmakers and not so much regular folks looking to enjoy a movie. I'm just calling it out. Watch as we get preached to about the advancement in war that could easily destroy the world in a movie about the making of the bomb and how not to use it poorly. We also have a star-studded cast from folks playing many characters from Oppenheimer to Albert Einstein, who frankly was famous for the whole E equals MC squared. He's basically probably going to be portrayed as the guy who is like the Steve Jobs to Oppenheimer's Wozniak in the creation of this, because he was like the idea guy, but then Oppenheimer was like, I'm going to do it. And then Einstein's like, oh, you're not going to be able to do it. It's like, we're years from this. And then Oppenheimer's like, let me show you something. And that's why we have the nuclear bomb, basically. Cobweb. Next up is a horror movie. So if you don't like those other two movies, you can always go through a third-party horror film, because nothing bodes well for a movie like a horror film during the summer box office season. As if Barbenheimer movies didn't wet your whistle, enjoy a horror film about a boy who is too curious only to find his parents have a dark secret. They are poor and could only afford a haunted house at a reasonable price in this day and age. While also keeping it from their son, there is a knocking, and the boy looks for answers, and even his parents are gaslighting him, perhaps to protect him, or perhaps he's the one that knocks. Then we got Mother May I, yet another kind of like parents gaslighting kids. Perhaps yet another example of gaslighting from parents in a horror movie that is coming out during the summer, which frankly, like I said, it's, if you're a horror fan, you might like it. Watch The Mother Dies, and his fiance is possessed when they visit the site of spreading her ashes over some kind of lake. Enjoy a cabin in the woods kind of horror movie. We have a haunted house, haunted cabins. Why go anywhere when it seems like the perfect getaway it ain't so perfect? Stay inside and order Amazon. All right, so those are the movies that are coming out. Up next, we're going to have a dub and stuff for you guys from the 1935 movie Annie Oakley.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
I don't know.
I think she'd be good for your esports team.
I don't know about this. This might be a Yoko situation. You always complain. Just let her shoot, okay? Come on, Harold. This is important to me. She looks like a streamer girl. Are you sure she knows how to play? I will have your head for this.
Oh, how rude. Just watch her.
Are you ready, boys? Yeah. Bang. Bang. Oh my God, she's perfect. Oh God. Oh jeez. Ma'am, play for our team.
Just hold on
Play for our team.
Hold on now.
Well,
You don't just run up on a pretty young gal and start yelling at her. That's not cool. And besides, she's a good shot. She might have just shot you for doing that. As you can see by my bowler hat, I'm kind of a big
I will
deal.
pay any price for her.
Not for sale.
I need her. My Call of Duty team is just all wonky and crap.
May I remind you, you have a 2-year contract with us before you can go over to some kind of esports team.
Oh, I guess it's gonna be all out war, I guess.
We will buy you out of your contract. We're a very serious Black Ops team, and we work together and we'll fire and we'll defeat all the enemies.
Oh, yes, esports is a very lucrative gig.
Yeah, that's fine and dandy, but we're kind of in the way.
Well, I'm just so happy you would want to discuss it.
Can I have a handshake?
Oh, sure.
Well, we got some fighting to do.
Why are you talking like that?
Well, I just want to do the aesthetic of doing a female's voice.
Oh, original. I like it. All right, here they come.
awkward. Come on now, fight! Alright, I'm going in! Come on! Alright, I'll just check his wallet and his hat and...
Whoa! Stop!
Oh, you're live?
I'm an actor. This isn't real.
Oh.
This is just pretend.
Hey guys, welcome back. Let's talk a little bit about some city council. It has been a week since the city decided to table the park ban discussion, and in many ways it was clear that marginalizing a small visible part of our community by banning everyone would create a sense of animosity towards the folks who have been asked to move from one place to another. But today it was back to the city's mind as we delve into my city council report, and we're going to jump right into Jim Koppel, one of the citizens here in Missoula, who was towed recently during the Pride Parade, and this is what he had to say about some of the processes when it comes to having parades in general in the downtown Missoula area. So this is what he had to say.
Pride, Reds towing, 11 people got towed and impounded. Only those 11 people are the truly innocent people. I've been fully refunded. I asserted my case, I've been fully refunded. I'm here with no financial gain, but I'm not walking away until these other 10 people are taken care of. I encourage you, the Reds manager is willing to open up negotiations. To me, it's a very simple negotiation between the three parties that messed up, and I think it can be resolved. But please don't hesitate to call me or set up a meeting. But the city has really failed Pride, and me personally, that's kind of symbolic as the responses I've had back from the mayor right there. Thank you.
And the tow was roughly $300, and Jim mentioned that he went through many city staff and workers to get this figured out and was unable to get responses from some, and others helped the best that they could. But overall, the event didn't take into account the parking issue during this parade. Since we're on the topic of government, public comment over concern of the $125,000, like I mentioned in the opening of my report, these are a bunch of the city comments that are very concerned about the money that was donated to the campaign of Mike Nugent. And so here is CB Pearson. So let's see if I can get it right where it needs to be. Okay.
I believe in honesty and transparency in elections. And as we learned from the media this week, we have a dark money group that's decided to weigh in the mayoral elections. And they go by the name Missoula Mayor. What does that tell us? It doesn't tell us that it's funded by the National Organization of Realtors, mostly, and then also by the Missoula Organization of Realtors. They have about $138,000. That's equivalent to what almost equivalent to what Mayor Egan raised last time. I was his consultant campaign manager, so I know the amount of money, and I know how hard it is to raise small dollar donations. So when big money comes into our community like that, under a hidden name, how are we as voters supposed to respond?
Okay, so that was CB Pearson reflecting on Mike Nugent City Council, who is a realtor by trade and getting support from the National Organization of Realtors of the amount of $125,000. Is a lot of money for a local mayoral campaign. Tom France of House District 94, he's up north towards the past the kind of up through the Rattlesnake a little bit further past. He kind of reflects on this as well from the perspective of the Montana State Legislature. And so let me see if I can find it. Okay. Yeah, this is definitely some major technical issues going on right now, just going through a different way of showing and telling. So just bear with me. And so this is Tom France.
This session at the legislature, we didn't hear as much about campaign contributions and PACs as we did in 2021 when we redid both the initiative process at Republican-dominated vote and the amount of campaign contributions that could come in. and the legislature, in its wisdom, is allowing PACs to take over our elections with multi-$100,000 donations, even while limiting individual Montanans to a few $100s, depending on the race. As someone who's run campaigns, and I know I speak to you, we all know how hard it is to raise money for a political campaign, and that's right. It shouldn't be easy. It's about selling yourself and selling your ideas, and every donation is essentially someone saying, I support what you're standing for. And PAC money just bypasses that whole process. I would like the council to consider a resolution that would be directed to the Commissioner on Political Practices on this issue of the name of the PAC. There has been a complaint filed, and I think it would be entirely appropriate for this council to weigh in on an issue that directly affects who's going to lead Missoula. And I think it may be appropriate for this council to consider a resolution on this kind of special interest money coming into Missoula.
Okay, and that was Tom France giving a series of and you know, these are just one of many other people who spoke out against this. Attendants spoke frankly about this, and goes to show Missoula is growing to a point where we might have to keep these checks and balances in our local government, because frankly, city councils for towns that are less than 100,000 people kind of lean towards stewardships. Like there's always about you know, I hate to say this a lot of times, but just like a lot of chatter and some people who are not in the know, like people like, well, like I feel like I'm a special case of watching city council, and I even watch it as much. I just try to find the points that happen there. It's just like not that many people are paying attention to a lot of the local government compared to other places. But yeah, Missoula is a little bit more interested. There's a lot of interest in the local government, but overall it doesn't seem like there's too much interest. But we are a growing city, and there's just a lot of opportunities coming in, and this kind of money going towards these kind of campaigns for a smaller election is kind of waning on people in Missoula. So I'll get off topic now. We're going to jump right into another public comment about somebody who's just trying to run a business and just dealing with Mountain Lion as they put up a kind of a bus stop shelter, in which has attracted some undesirable folks sleeping there. So this is Jennifer Stiers talking a little bit about her business and how it has suffered recently. So let me throw it back to her.
So I'm asking, I need help figuring out who to talk to about the Mountain Lion. Doing this, I do feel a reassessment should have been done. What apparently happened is they hired somebody to work on the project in 2021, had a contract, and then that business went out of business. So it got delayed for 2 years. And now they've hired a new company, I believe Knife River, who's now restarting the project. So the stakes are out there in front of my home that's already unsafe because of the bus traffic that gets on and off. As I said, my fault for choosing to live there when it was adjacent. I read the letters that it went out to the previous owners. There were two, one to one owner, one to the other is all. Mountain Lion gave me those. And neither says directly in front of your house will it be torn up, trees, parking, everything gone to accommodate a shelter.
Okay, and she's had to call the police at least once a week because of some of these disturbances. Her business is basically a nurse practitioner. She started opening her own business. She lives out of the home that she works out of, and you know, her main source of business is to help new mothers breastfeed and support them. She has claimed to have helped over half of Missoula moms in the last 20 years and is afraid for them and her business / home that is adjacent to this bus stop shelter. There are many things happening in everyday citizens and their reactions to the changing climate of Missoula. The university is up for approval as UM plans to unveil their new indoor practice facility, one on their larger piece of property adjacent to the river north of campus. There is always something being built on campus every day, it seems like. Charlie Ream, Community Development, talks more about the plans on this particular site. So I'm going to throw it over to that, and you're going to get a kind of a look of this particular thing. And this was kind of like the practice site. This is where I was in the marching band of the University of Montana. 7-Eleven, yeah. And part of that was, one of the practice fields that we used outside was marching around that practice field before we'd get into the stadium to perform for the halftime show. So anyways, here's Charlie Ream, Community Development, talking a little bit more about that.
This facility will be located at 655 South Van Buren Street, south of the Kim Williams Trail and east of Rankin Park. The maroon star marks the location of the proposed project. Whenever an agency proposes to use public land contrary to local zoning regulations, a public hearing must be held to allow for comment on the proposed use, and the agency shall attend the public hearing. City Council does not have the power to deny or condition the request. This means there will be no vote on the item.
Okay, and so there's a little taste of what you guys can expect from the new facility. It's basically going to be a big indoor practice facility for the sports teams at the University of Montana. University of Montana is technically controlled by the Board of Regents in the state of Montana, so many local communities don't have much say in what is done, although this was mostly just like an informational only for the city to present a public hearing for this. Many comments from concerned were access to the large green space, which will grow limited, and access to the indoor training area is approval by Grizzly Athletics. So yep, it's just another building in which you need some kind of access to get into in the first place. That's kind of what they do with a lot of their other gyms. You have your Grizz card and you can get in there, just like your if you're a university student. So there's definitely some things there. Of course, many people in the city of Missoula use the Grizzly pool to recreate and stuff like that, but with everything at the university, there is a fee to get to. So the green space is not going to be as available for people who just want to play fetch with their dog using the large open field. So that's just kind of it's definitely kind of a bummer, but there's definitely more space and more just plans are happening as well. So let's move on to committee meetings. And this one is going to be very weird when it comes to me presenting a lot of what you're going to be seeing right now. I'm going to put my headphones on real quick. And so the Budget and Finance Committee jumps into the grant to fund a third victim witness coordinator position with a 20% match by the city. Also, street lighting assessment is being done on our lighting in the city. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to Colleen Roseboom with the City Attorney Office talks about this grant in which they're trying to speed line this process to move forward with this. And this is what she had to say about that. Yeah, like I said, it's going to be awkward.
Years, the victim services cases have increased by 55%. We saw a dip in fiscal year 2021, but that was from the impacts of COVID and the citations being written. These are intensive cases with not only significant file work, but also substantial contact with victims and collaboration with prosecutors. The offenses are also some of the most difficult to prosecute. Secondary trauma for staff is a concern, and caseloads that are not sustainable can attribute. Staff recognize the role they play in the lives of others and are simply unable to provide services effectively due to their standards and those set forth by Montana Code Annotated. With 3 full-time courtrooms, 1 staff member will be assigned to a courtroom and 2 prosecutors. You see a list of core duties above on the screen assigned to victim services staff. Jury trials right now being held every week with 2 staff members. They are preparing for jury every week, as well as doing all of their other daily tasks, contacts with victims, that type of thing.
All right, so one of the major things that are happening with these positions that they're trying to alleviate some of the workload as more of these cases come to fruition. In terms of the cases, I can't necessarily speak to the specifics of what they're talking about, but one of the major things is that when there was a crime committed, there's always a victim, and when it comes to the victim, a lot of times there's it's kind of it's hard on the victim along with the people who are trying to help the victim. So this was kind of created as a way to kind of protect the victim in certain circumstances of certain trials that are happening. And in many ways, you know, like the court system is kind of weird because in a lot of ways, if you accuse somebody and you're trying to prosecute them, they have the right to face you in a trial. But with this whole victims, you know, criminal and felony kind of things, there's certain protections to protect a lot of these victims as well. So one example, domestic violence, that tends to be a little bit more nuanced and complicated when it comes to, you know, spousal abuse and stuff like that, because in many cases, it's easier for a spouse to waive any kind of thing because a lot of times they live with their significant other who is abusing them, and so it's even harder for them because in a way, them getting away from their abusive relationship, they basically technically become homeless, and so they need the kind of support, and then the stress along with adding some kids into the mix adds just a whole nother level, especially when you're dealing with legal ramifications of this. Not to mention, you know, domestic violence is such a huge issue, and it became kind of a bigger issue during the pandemic here in the city of Missoula as well. So this is a lot of the money that's going towards this as well. This is one of the small pieces, but this is a grants that already have been awarded, and they're trying to streamline this process to make it move forward for city to hire this third victim coordinator to help in these particular things. But this overall about grant that is already awarded to the city of Missoula, and we'll vote on this upcoming. Aside from that, the grant the city presented their executive budget reflects on central services, human resources, Missoula Redevelopment Agency, community planning, and the police budget, which kind of goes along with public safety and health, which will talk about updating the collective bargaining agreement with the police and security services for the city of Missoula. So we'll jump right in. So Angela Simonson with Human Resources is going to be talking about the police department, and this is what she had to say about that.
This is the city's largest union with 115 positions currently being represented. As I've entered into every union negotiation, I've attempted to align wages with market rates whenever possible. Markets can be determined by looking at a number of comparable cities, national data, and also other city positions to ensure that we have equity within our own organization. The city's review of such data indicates current wages for police officers is significantly below market rate. In addition to working to align wages with market rates, we've also experienced concerns with national recruiting and retention issues for police officers. Since 2020, law enforcement profession has become less desirable and in turn has created recruiting challenges not only at MPD, but across the country. In the past fiscal year, MPD had 6 officers retire and 2 resign. The number of applicants during recent recruitments is lower than in past years as well. The successful negotiations made a few changes to the contract terms, but the biggest change is found in the wage matrix for all of these reasons I just mentioned. We have agreed on a 3.5% COLA and a 6.5% market adjustment for a total increase of 10% to wages for fiscal year 24, and a COLA of 4% for the following 3 years, in addition to an agreement to have a wage opener to negotiate future market adjustments in an effort to get wages in alignment with market, as we could not fiscally afford that in 1 year.
All right, so that kind of gives you the rundown of just how less money that the city of Missoula's police department is getting paid regardless of increasing their wages. So one thing also is that Missoula has been fortunate because the city itself is desirable to live in, but affordability is one of the harder sales for this, and even with Missoula being a better place than many communities, we are not immune to the times that we live in. Chief Mike Collier talks about this further in these shortages and how he is going to address them. So here's the City of Missoula Chief of Police.
We were mostly through the year just down 1 full-time police officer, and so we had replaced essentially all of them minus 1. A lot of that is timing to coincide our recruitment cycles with the police academy, because if we hire somebody that's not post-certified already in this state or an equivalent state, then they need to go to that academy cycle. What we're as a side note, kind of previewing what we're up against, is right now are facing 5 vacancies. We have two more likely and two more potential downstream that we're kind of forecasting for. So recruiting in this year is going to be extraordinarily important.
All right, so that's his reflection on this, and so at the same time, and like it's when you're trying to recruit for jobs, you're trying to find the best people, and you can't have the best people without the best wages. And then of course, like we can sell the place all we want, and you can have a good environment. And I've talked to people before, and people in their 20s, they're at the point where they're like, I want to work at a place with a better vibe than better pay, because they care a lot more about their particular mental health moving forward with this. So it's interesting how it's going to kind of shake out, but overall the fiscal year for the budget for the next 3 years will be raised by $1,125,000, and this will be part of the fiscal year 2024 budget will be discussed in August. So this will be one of the many things part of this, and part of the police union working with the city and their agreement, a union agreement was pretty much just like, yeah, great. It was one of the fastest negotiations that they were talking about during this meeting as well. So moving on, let's talk about some of the things that are happening in terms of that Bridge apartment. So back a couple years ago during the height of the pandemic, one of the Bridge apartments were basically looking to sell out and leave. And part of that, the people that actually live in the Bridge apartment are Americans with disabilities. And so they fall into the ADA Act. And so part of this was that the city of Missoula was just like, oh, these people are going to be evicted from these homes that some of them may have a lot more difficulty leave in the first place. And so the city of Missoula intervened, bought this property, and basically kind of kept it going. But the city of Missoula is looking to sell and be like, hey, we need to get out of this property. And so part of this is that they were like, hey, we're going to put this up for sale. We're going to try to sell it for something or whatever, and make sure that the people who buy it next respect the people who live there and keep it affordable. That never happened. That never came to fruition. And they're just like, okay, we're going to have to come up with a new deal. So what they ended up doing is a Blue Line, the developer, which basically is managing the property now, has an agreement with the city of Missoula to basically have be like, hey, we'll sell it to you at $1 million less than we would have sold it for. So technically, the city bought it for like $2 million. Now they're looking to sell it for $1 million to Blue Line, who is managing this property, while also being able to do a redevelopment, do some construction without losing the current tenants, and trying to hopefully maximize the development while also keeping it affordable. So it's interesting how it's kind of like mending and how it's kind of looking into this. It's very tight. I would have to say it's pretty close relationship between the city of Missoula and this developer. So Jason Bull with Blue Line talks about their involvement with this partnership with the city of Missoula, and this is what he had to say about this.
So as part of our development, obviously we want to include as many local authorities as we can. The Missoula Housing Authority currently provides tenant-based vouchers. They're committed to making those project-based vouchers upon award of tax credits. Again, this was purchased by the city in order to not lose this deal to a market rate housing. I believe we have the full support of the city, and we're really pushing to make this a permanent solution to maintain the affordability of this project and serve the tenant population that is most vulnerable in our community.
And so Blue Line will be getting a first bid for this subject property, and they're going to be selling it at a lower rate, which, it was $1.1 million, and turn around for a loss of $1 million under the conditions of the affordability for current and future tenants of this particular site. Emily Harris Shears responds to some of the comments of the city purchasing this property for less.
The property management agreement that we signed about 2 years ago. And in that, the city did, MRA and the city did request for proposals for purchases of this building. And the request or recommendation that we received from Blue Line was to allow them to enter into a 5-year property management with option to purchase. And that would give them time to explore and do feasibility studies around redevelopment. And so that is the current agreement that we're under. And under that agreement, essentially, Blue Line has first right to purchase it.
All right, so that was Emily Harris-Shear talking about this. And yeah, I mean, it was one of the negotiation tactics that the city of Missoula used to keep it affordable. The agreement was also on many agreements. But beforehand, if you can bear with me for a brief history lesson, Missoula bought it to save the tenants from an eviction. Those tenants fell under the ADA category, and when the city was shopping around to sell the property, no one bid on the property under the affordable conditions the city asked for, and then they had to come up with new ideas, which included Blue Line as the steward in the end to move forward on this, while also curving the pricing to make it more somewhat competitive, but at the same time keeping it affordable. So far, this is an ongoing and another step forward for redevelopment and rehabilitation of the Bridge Apartment is going to happen. So Climate Conservation and Parks is talking about Chinese residents of the past and memorializing them. And so this was a presentation, kind of like an eye-opening it's very eye-opening presentation. I wish I could have showed you through the computer, but for right now I'm going to show you a series of slides that are associated with the topic. And so Paul Kim, University of Montana, ACLU, who basically was writing a paper and kind of stumbled upon an old article finding some interesting history about Missoula in general. So here is Paul Kim talking about this.
When Chinese groups of Chinese workers were working in either mines or on the railroad, they'd set up these camps, work for a few weeks, and then move along. And so in the last 2 decades or so, it's been a movement among archaeologists in Montana to start excavating some of these camps and recreating what life was like for the Chinese. So Professor Dixon was writing this paper, and in her introduction, she began sort of laying out the history of Montana's Chinese generally. And one thing that she noticed that sort of made me pause for a bit was this one line that Missoula used to have a Chinese cemetery, but it no longer is operated, or it no longer exists anymore, and it remains beneath residential subdivisions where bones occasionally arise when residents do excavation or other landscaping in their yard. And at that point, I lived in Missoula for a few years. I had sort of prominently been interested in the city's history and was also pursuing a dissertation project on Montana political history at large. And this was a line that stopped me in its tracks because I felt like after 2 years of doing this project, I was a bit shocked that that was the first I was hearing about a Chinese cemetery in Missoula.
All right, so yeah, I mean, the longer a group of people reside in Missoula for either like a work or a gig thing, there's a tendency for people to pass away. And so part of this was the cemetery was made near the summit of Mount Jumbo, near the giant L on our mountain. So that they'll talk a little bit more details about that during the presentation. But Chinese bones underneath residential homes is definitely something I did not have on my bingo card for Missoula history. The railroad brought in a lot of stuff through Missoula, and it's kind of a weird place that has one of the top 5 oldest African-American studies programs in the nation for being predominantly European descent. Recently, the Historic Museum of Fort Missoula has been awarded a major dollar grant to reflect the internment camp during World War II, and this is just another big piece of history beginning to unfold. Paul Kim brings up an article reflecting the Missoulian article from August 14th, 1984 on the Chinese cemetery, and this is what he had to say about that.
The old graveyard seems to be going rack and ruin pretty rapidly, and it is time that those who have friends buried there should take steps either to remove the bodies to the new cemetery or else fix up the old. It does not speak well for a community to let a burial place be in the condition the old cemetery is in now, and we hope to see early action taken in regard to the matter. And so 1885 is really the time period in Missoula history where we could see that this cemetery that has now sort of been desecrated and fallen into ruin, those who have friends or family buried in the cemetery are actively exhuming these bodies and moving them to the new Missoula cemetery on the west side. At this point, because sort of the white burials that are happening there, these are being removed, the Chinese community in Missoula gets to now bury into this cemetery. And the reason why this is the case is that Missoula's Chinese there was a perception among white Missoulians at the time that they did not want to be buried next to the Chinese, for sort of more blatant racist reasons, for fear of the Chinese community being an other, but also for the reason that it was common for Missoula's Chinese to observe the traditional burial practice of exhumation. And so the Chinese would be buried, and then after 12 years, there was a whole network of merchants that would connect Missoula to southern China. And when you died, ideally you would have left some money for these merchants to wait 12 years for that time to pass. Those bones would then be exhumed, transferred back to southern China, and buried in your ancestral homeland. And so there was a stigma among white residents that this process of exhumation might lead to their own bones being disturbed. And so it was only until the cemetery really began to fall into disarray that Missoula's Chinese were being buried there.
Yep. So that was just some of the history and how it ended up going that far, just in the city of Missoula. The main focus of the presentation was to create a memorial for the Chinese that lived and died in the city of in Missoula, and frankly was forgotten about. From the presentation, many of these bones and questions were close to a cemetery, closer to the summit of Mount Jumbo, like I mentioned before. However, as the cemetery became unkempt, as you was talking in the presentation, the Missoula Cemetery, as we know it, was established in 1914. And then Paul Kim also brings up, for this last quote, I promise you, brings up the Missoulian article from 1914 talking about moving some bodies, but not all. And so this is the last quote that I have for you guys.
Right. The burial grounds on Cherry Street was established while Missoula still clung close to the original town, now known as the Island. Until 10 years ago, it was kept in good condition. Then, the expanding city began to jostle its pioneer dead, and one by one, the bodies of all whose descendants lived in the city were moved to newer and more secure resting places. The graveyard fell into disrepair, and as the boundaries were obliterated, the city crept in. Houses were built over all remaining graves, most of them unmarked, save that of Fred Worden. Now, as a mark of respect to one of the city's pioneers, the council will have the bones moved. So in 1914, what we see is Missoula City Council directly inserts itself as they see, it's an open secret in this town that over the last few decades, the cemetery had fallen into total disrepair. And there is this sort of nagging anxiety that building houses over somebody's body is not something that should happen to anyone, no less one of Missoula's foremost settlers. And so I think that as I began this project, one of the first questions that was raised to me was, how is it possible that you could build a neighborhood over unmarked graves? It wasn't a question that I had much familiarity with, but one that I was fairly keen to answer. And as I sort of explored this question more and more, I was asking myself, is it possible that at some point they just didn't know, or at some point this history was forgotten and it allowed either real estate speculators or developers to see this as not a cemetery site but as just land? And so I think that perhaps this was the empathetic explanation I was landing on, that perhaps it was a mistake that these houses were built on top of unmarked graves. But as you could see in this article from 1914, it says houses were built over all remaining graves, most of them unmarked. And so if you ask this question, did they know what they were doing? The answer is unequivocally yes.
Yep. So part of this history deep dive was the fact that what we didn't know is something that was already known, but didn't really care too much about, to a point where they kind of up and forgot about it and moved on to the next thing, which pretty typical of just, human race in general, where it's like one thing leads to another. And with a series of uncovering bodies over the decades and real estates being available soon after some of the bodies were removed, while others weren't, the ones that weren't were found over the many years. And I believe that the last article that he mentioned during this was an article from 1978, which is what led him down this rabbit hole of looking through all these articles reflecting the old cemetery that used to be on the basically the summit of where Mount Jumbo is right now, leading up to the L. So that general area, so if you have a house in that particular area, you might have a couple old bones down in the old cemetery. So yeah, there you go. There's my city council report. It's nice to end on a kind of a crazy historical, kind of potentially scary note. for folks that are maybe trying to do some digging around their house near the Mount Jumbo area. But yeah, there you go. There's some information that I was like, I did not expect to get that from just one of the committee meetings, because I tend to gloss over a couple committee meetings during my city council report, and not so much the main city council meetings that happen on Monday. If you want for more information about these and more, you can go on to ci.missoula.mt.us. All right, so the last couple minutes of my morning show, I'm going to talk briefly about some of the events that are happening within the city of Missoula, kicking off this morning as well is that Spectrum Discovery Center is doing a thing called Animal Superheroes. And so this talks about some animals that have some crazy superpowers, and if they were ever scaled up to the size of a human, they'd be able to jump over tall buildings in a single bound and all sorts of stuff like that. So also they're doing some robotics at the Spectrum Discovery Center. There's a lot of different camps and a lot of stuff going on this week as well, including MCAT camps are going to be wrapping up this week. Like I said in the beginning of my show, MCAT will be posting all the videos that the kids have made this week at 4 o'clock today. Makerspace walk-in hours, if you're interested in doing some 3D printing, laser printing, that kind of thing, Makerspace is the place to be here at the Missoula Public Library. We also have a bunch of other summer camps happening right here. It's called the Citizen Scientist. It's the Montana Natural History Center starting at 9:30 this morning. High School Girls Conservation Corps Camp at that Natural History Center. One-day morning art camp is happening in a workshop at the downtown area. This is AR Workshop Missoula. You got your various different things. Empower Place, which is located over at the Missoula Food Bank. It is equal parts community center, library, and science center at the Missoula Food Bank. So if you want the same advantages that you have here at the Missoula Public Library, plus you want to go grocery shopping, the Missoula Food Bank is the place to be. Let's see. Tiny Tales Storytime happens every Friday at 10:30 a.m. on the second floor of the Missoula Public Library. It's an ongoing event for parents who want their kids to get engaged with reading and books. Maybe check out a book along the way. Lunch at the Missoula Senior Center. So this is an opportunity for a lot of seniors. This is a recurring event, happens weekdays. And to get some food, get people down to the Missoula Senior Center, play some pinochle. Yarns is happening on the 4th floor of the Missoula Public Library at noon. It happens every single Friday at noon on the 4th floor in the Blackfoot Business Boardroom. Also, what's happening, which is an ongoing event well through the summer, Thursday through Sunday. If you want to go down float the river, but you don't want to take 2 cars, you can use the U-Dash River Shuttle, and they meet at Campus Drive. And all you got to do is get on the bus, and then it happens from 12 to 6 p.m. every Thursday through Sunday. And last pickup is at 6 p.m. So they can pick you up with your inner tube, go up on the river, float down, and make your way back. And it doesn't take a car at all. So yeah, what else is going on as well? Lego Club at the Missoula Public Library in the afternoon, 2:30 p.m. International Choir Festival starting at 2 p.m. today. Various locations around town, mostly the Music Recital Hall and the Denison Theater at the University of Montana. You can't miss it. It's right at one of the bus stops. I believe Route 2 goes right to the Music Recital Hall right at the University of Montana, right in front of that building as you're across from the Gallagher Business Building. Okay, I'm being too specific. Okay, MCT also does camps this summer long, and they do a children's theater camp, so it's a week-long camp where the kids get together, perform, and then they're going to perform tonight at 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. Make sure you have the right times for your kids to watch for those, because they usually have 2 different kinds of shows for 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. Unless I've been told otherwise. Zach Coed Rock Camp Performance at the Wilma. So this is Zach. They do girls rock camp, but this is their Zach Coed camp, where they basically build a band and then they perform it at the Wilma on Friday at 5 p.m. Looks like they get a pretty good lucrative deal with Nick Shakota here in Missoula. Adult night at Hearts of Fire. You know, it's Pottery and Art Studio at 5 p.m. You got Treasure, I already said Treasure Island. Okay, so Anything But Susie is going to be some folk music at Imagination Brewing Company starting at 6 p.m. tonight. Missoula Public Library is doing an online D&D for adults, so that's called Dungeons and Dragons. If you're interested in doing a D&D campaign, jump on, pop off. They do it online, Missoula Public Library. You can look at it online at missoulapubliclibrary.org. If you're a socialist here in the city of Missoula, since it seems to be trending, you can join them at Kiwanis Park at 6 p.m. I don't mean to be dismissive. You can be whatever politics you want to be. Doesn't affect me that much. Christmas in July, holiday light up sign-in workshop. They're doing an AR workshop in Missoula. This is a class, and so Christmas in July, holiday gift light up sign workshop. Ten Spoon Winery is going to be hosting Andre Floyd at Ten Spoon Winery. They're going to be playing some acoustic music. American Legion is doing Outer Waves, Fresh Sounds, Noise, New Music. It's a community event, miscellaneous music. Live music, bluegrass at Cranky Sand Public House at 7 p.m. Paddleheads, Wizards and Wands Nights fireworks at Oregon Park Baseball Field, starting at 7 p.m. Jokes from the Multiverse one-man comedy show, the Zootown Arts Community Center at 7 p.m. Karaoke at the Jack Salon at 7. Raised by Wolves at the Old Post. Multi-genre jam band is going to be at 8 p.m. And Monks is going to be doing some art and funk collective, but I'm a cheerleader, starting at 8 p.m. Uncle Funk is going to be at Union Club, starting at 9 p.m. So those are the bands that are happening as well. If you're interested in going to the farmers market, just so you guys know, from 8 a.m. to about 1 p.m. every Saturday, farmers market, great way for people to sell breads, berries, vegetables, and more, with some food trucks every single Saturday by a carousel from Missoula, Red X's, and then the downtown, just right next to Thomas Mar Bar and Pine Street in the downtown Missoula area. You can't miss it. Just go to where everyone else is going. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's bird watching, if you're interested in that kind of stuff, Saturday at 9 a.m. Montana Natural History Center. Christmas in July craft show, Lolo Community Center at 9 a.m. Saturday, these are Saturday events, reminding you again, there's a 1K, 5K, and 10K Sealy Creek Trails. I believe that's in Sealy Lake, starting at 10 a.m. Loon and Fish Art Sale and Festival is going to be at the Sealy Lake Community Foundation, starting at 10 a.m. Also starting at 10 a.m. is the Missoula Ferry Trail at the Green Bench Orchard. Christmas in July Clay Ornament Workshop. So it looks like there's a lot of Christmas in July being hosted at the AR Workshop in Missoula downtown area. What else is going on? U-Dash again, if you're going floating, like I said, Thursday through Sunday, noon to 6 p.m. There's doing a fundraiser for the Wildfire Ceramic Studio, starting at 4 p.m. at Highlander Beer. Salsa in the parks. Playfield Park is going to do some salsa in the park. Learn salsa music, listen to salsa music, and have a good old time. Let's see, folk music at Imagination Brewing Company at 6 p.m. Jazz at Draftworks at 6 p.m. Kettle House Amphitheater is having country Lyle Lovett and his large band at 6:30 p.m. Come to Our Senses at Sacred Alley. It's a community event. Paddleheads Game at the Oregon Baseball Field Saturday night at 7 p.m. Fly Fishing Paint Night, Painting with a Twist at 7 p.m. Jack Salon is doing some country music. Neil Elder. Crimson Sky is going to be at Zootown Arts Community Center at 7:30 p.m. Louis Bondo at the Old Post, some jazz music at the Old Post Saturday night. Solid State Karaoke at West Side Lanes and Fun Center. Suka's Birthday Bash, there's going to be some electronic music at Monks. Union Club is going to DJ night with Diesel. Cowboy, Missoula Outdoor Cinema is going to be a Head Start park, and it's going to be showing the movie Cowboys. DJ Chris Moon at the Battler on your Saturday night, and that will be wrapping up your weekend for some fun as well. A couple other things happening on Sundays, but you can find out more by going on to MissoulaEvents.net. So for Wake Up Missoula, I'm Scott Ramp. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and take care.